Hey class, welcome to week 6. Let's dive into what you're going to be doing this week, what we're learning about. Chapters this week 14, 15, and 16. And you're going to be focusing on, the chapters focus on three different areas. First one, media ethics. Second one, media law. And the last one, multicultural sensitivity. So let's start with the ethics and media law here. Ethics and law, as the book will go over, there is a line, a distinction. Sometimes they're together, right? It crosses whatever the issue is, crosses the realm of both. But ethical, the way it's always described is you find $100 bill outside on the street. What do you do with it? Do you pocket it? Do you bring it to the police? Do you bring it to the store that's there? Do you look around for anybody and ask them? It's not necessarily always a right and wrong answer. It kind of depends on circumstance, depends on your background, depends on your past experiences, depends on what your judgment in the moment. It's just a lot to do with the gray area of situations. And so those arise often in the work of journalists and journalism, right? You're going to have issues that you learn about in school, about this is way that it's done before, this is the guiding light, but it's not always a clear answer. And often you have to make that judgment call. Are you going to go to jail? No. Are you going to lose your job? Maybe. Depends. Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes as a journalist, if you do something and it was unethical, your employer won't have you. Sometimes it was a little unethical, but they understand in the moment, you thought it was the best decision and you stay. So that's what I mean with the ethics. The chapter will go over what is ethics, how do you approach it, how do you think about it. We'll talk about different situations in journalism that have arisen before and how it was dealt with. And that's what we're talking about ethics. The media law, that is the defined by a court, right? That you can or cannot do something. And there's several of those in journalism. And here is something that often I find students or just people in general don't know. Journalists can go to jail for things that they've done. What's that? Well, often if you have a source, so making a long, lesson here in like 1 minute, but I'll make it concise. One way is you have, and you learned this from your previous chapter, you have anonymous sources sometimes, right? You have a source that can find something to you, you can use it, but you're not telling the information of where you got it, who you got it from. The federal government then might say, no, we need who that source is. We need to know who they are. They leaked some valuable information, and we need to know it. And you as a journalist have to make a decision. You either comply and give that source up who you said to promise to be anonymous, and you say, okay, here's the person, and the federal government can go after them, right? The government can go after them. Or you say, no, I promise them not. And if that's the case, they can hold you in contempt. Actually, I don't know if that's the technical term, but they can arrest you. And this has happened to journalists before. They refused to give up their sources, and they were arrested and held in jail. Doesn't happen often. Very rare that it happens. There's groups that protect it, but it has happened. So my point is, there are laws. Now that's an extreme. You're not going to get arrested for everything you do. I don't want you to take that away, and the book will talk more about it. But there are certain things that you can and cannot publish. And you're going to see a term that's going to come up: actual malice. You're going to learn all about that. There are some things that you can't publish because you are being negligent with it. You're not trying to find the fact. You're just putting something out there that is going to be harmful, and you take absolutely no effort to try to see if there's any accuracy or support to it. That is actually considered a crime. You can be sued for that. A crime, not like going to jail, but you can be sued for that. So there's media law. So I shouldn't have said crime, sorry, but you can be sued for that. It's illegal. So there's media law, there's media ethics, and then the last chapter is multicultural sensitivity. So it's not related to the ethics or law, but it's just an awareness that we have as a journalist. Just like with ethics, just like with law, there are certain guidelines, certain guidelines that you should be following and thinking about as you create your stories, as you write your stories. If you really want to look at it, these three, the last piece of it is like it's like an edit. It's like editing, right? You're making sure when you create your stories, is it ethical? Is it legal? Everything I'm doing legal? Do I have proper representation in it? Did I do my best to make sure that a variety of voices have been heard and covered, right? And so that's really, if we're going to lump this in under one umbrella, That's what this chapter is about, right? It's that form of editing. And so that's what you're going to be diving deeper into for this unit, for these 3 chapters. You guys get the rhythm here. By the end of the week, you'll be taking the quiz. You will also have an exercise, which I'll just show in a minute. The big one here is you're completing your hard news story, right? That is due by the end of the week. You got to get that story in. At this point, everybody should have confirmed with me the story that they want to do. If you have not, then you have to do it like today, right? And I don't know when you're watching this, but hopefully it's Monday or Tuesday, because you'll have to confirm that story. You'll go out and report on the story, and then of course you have to write it and edit it, and you're really crunching yourself with time. If you didn't confirm the story with me and you didn't do what would be considered the hard news story, then you're going to be, maybe hopefully you did follow it and do the right type of cover the right kind of story. But if not, that's going to really, ding your grade, maybe not even be able to pass, because you did what was something that wasn't a hard news story, and I can't then grade based on the criteria of a hard news story. So that's my very long way of saying, if you have not approved the story yet with me, you better check early, right? Because you don't want to have any of those situations happen to you by the end of the week. And of course, continue to read news stories each day, especially I'd like to say the hard news stories. Try to start to read some more hard news stories so you kind of see the style that they do. You can connect the lessons we're learning in the class, how it's being applied in the professional world. And it's just a good way for you to learn from the professionals and observe, and maybe even take some of those techniques and start applying it to yourself and to your work. All right, so again, we just talked about it, but you've got the quiz, you know that. You got your hard news story, you know that. Taking a look at the exercise here, answer questions 1 and 2 on page 285. You'll see I support your answers with lessons you learned from the chapter. You'll see the questions is you're doing a little bit of research. You're going to go out there and find these media law cases. So you're going to do your own research on the internet, find your media law cases. Many of you are going to find the big ones that commonly come up, and that is totally fine. Though every once in a while I get surprised and there's one that comes up that I didn't know about before, and that's always interesting to me. That's just a little side note here. But the reason why I tell you that is because I want to make sure I focus in on this line. Support your answers with the lessons you learned from the chapter. What I don't want you to do is just, here is a media law case that happened, and pretty much copy paste. In fact, you're not copying and pasting. Copy and paste it, and here you go. What you're really doing is saying, here were some of the lessons I learned from the chapter, and here's how it was applied in this media law case. I see that this term that I learned was applied here, and here's how. I see that this was the result of the trial, and that makes sense because the book talks about X, Y, and Z happening, and that why you shouldn't do that, whatever it is. So my point is, what I need to see here is more than you just finding the case and copying and pasting and putting it in. It's you finding the appropriate case and then analyzing it, breaking it down piece by piece. In here's a lesson that I learned from the book, and I saw it being applied in this media law case, being applied, right? And you can break that down. All right, so we're wrapping up here by the end of this video. I just want to revisit this real fast. We're in this week here. Oops, we're in this week here. So you've got big chunk here of assignments due, of course, at the same time. Now I know you've been working on the hard news story for the last couple of weeks, but make sure that is all in by 11:59 p.m. because this hard news story here is your first big grade, and no late work here, but your big the first one that's weighted the most. So I don't want this to get lost in the shuffle. That is due by the end of the week. All right, if there are any questions, of course you can let me know. Let's swing back here to week 6. Of course you can let me know if I have not approved that story. Let me know early. We can talk about it. But otherwise, keep up the good work. After you turn in your hard news story, you might have to give me 2 weeks to get that back to you. I try my best to do it in a week, but it might take a couple of weeks. But I will also provide a lot of feedback, because like I've been telling you in this class, a big part of this class, I know the hard part is on your own, having to read this information and process it. Though I do think the book does a good job of breaking it down, right? I know it's tough to have to sit there and have to read through it, or it can be tough for some of you. But my role, besides keeping you on track, is the feedback. And so the hard news story, I will be giving you a lot of feedback, because that's tailored to you, right? It's tailored to making the issues that you struggle with, the things that you do well, helping address those specifically. So the feedback that I give you after in the next 2 weeks, make sure you're reading it, making sure that you understand it always, Let me know if you don't understand something, because that's how I can help you all out one-on-one personally. So that's my long way of saying I need to know if that you're make sure that you're always reading the feedback, same that I do on the exercises too, right? Always taking a look at the feedback. And if you ever don't understand something, let me know. And if I can't answer through email, we could always talk, because that's really where my help for you comes one-on-one, is through that feedback and engagement that we get back and forth on these assignments. All right, looking forward to reading all those stories. And of course, let me know if there are any questions before then.